What's up, everybody? We are back. John Della Rose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. Today I'm going to review an Alex Toth work, which was a independent work he did in the 80s, something that had been on his mind for a long time, that he wanted to try out this new format, trying to mimic European-style comics with his art. And, he did one, and it was supposed to be a series. He had very many starts and stops. There's some talk in here in the book about how he actually took a very long time to do this. He would draw 3 pages and then scrap them and then redo it. I guess this was really a labor of love that he wanted to do for a long time. And I got this nice Library of American Comics version of this book, which makes it hard to actually put on the camera here. And it is bigger than it. Here, I'm going to show you why. Here's an omnibus size. Let's see if we can pull out a little bit. And it's much bigger than an omnibus, so you get really nice, huge, detailed art in this, which is why I got it. Actually, this was recommended to me by Curtis Finlay of the Epic Marvel podcast, so please go check that out if you love comics. Love the Epic Marvel podcast. And Dean Molinet wrote a nice introduction. I've actually talked to Dean via email a little bit, nice guy, and does a lot of great restorative work with the Library of American Comics. So this has 2 shorts to it, plus 1 serial fiction, which is a 4-parter, about 50 pages in the middle of it. And the short one just kind of details a background of who Jesse Bravo is, with a lot of text. And so it's an interesting introduction to it, and then we get into the actual work, and look at this just beautiful art, so unbelievable. You just see how this pops. And Alex Toth has this very minimalistic style, which it's weird, like he doesn't draw a ton of detail, but the detail fills itself in your mind's eye because of the way that he just masterfully has these brush strokes. And this is a little more detailed than is usual with these little dotted areas here, but you'll see it on the coming pages. It's a very classic cartoonist style. And there's panels that, like, some of them only have a few lines to them, and you go, wow, this really paints a picture. And the story is about this guy, Jesse Bravo, who's a courier airplane pilot, who is also a stunt airplane pilot, and he gets conscripted to do this stunt deal and is going to fly a bunch of guys up there to do that. Meanwhile, there's this gambling ship guy who lives off of who has a ship off the shore, and there's another pilot, a stunt pilot, who is big in debt to him. It turns out there's a mystery because that guy's dead, who apparently has the debt. And it goes through, and we have this nice mystery here. I can't even, it's too hard to even show, but I mean, look at, there's only a couple lines on this airplane, but look at the sense of motion that you get with the background, with the just, it's just a black squiggly line, if you think about it, but that's a mountain, you could tell, and you get the nice sense of motion and sense of height, and that the 2 planes are coming at each other with barely any lines here. It's just unbelievable how well that's done, and just the minimalism works. It tells the story perfectly. Just beautiful comic art, and his figures are great too. And that's another thing. I mean, the way he just draws the faces just are so expressive and wonderful, even with these few lines as mentioned. So they all converge, and what happens is there's this gal, and she's married, or she's to be married to this other pilot who's kind of a dingbat, and he is spending all this money, blowing all his money because he knows she's wealthy and he doesn't care. And he's got into a gambling debt problem. And the first part actually ends in a crash as the guys coming after are speeding towards what's going on. Now, the story keeps going on this level where we're figuring out that, like, the dingbat guy is really the problem. The gal is caught up in this and, has some nice chemistry with Jesse Bravo over the course of things. Here's another just example, like, look at how few lines this is, and yet it communicates headlights in the darkness so well. It's just great. Lots of emotion to every page in here. And it's just beautiful to look at on the art level. Let me go into the story level in a little bit, because as a writer, I do have a couple issues with this story. And even though the art is perfect, the characters are actually really well done. They all have their own quirks. They're very real people throughout this whole thing. And of course, the airplane scenes are some of the best parts. I do take a little bit of an issue with the storyline in general. And that's that Jesse Bravo, for a story called Bravo for Adventure, you expect a nice big adventure with Jesse Bravo. And Jesse Bravo kind of just is there and reacts to everything going on around him. So even though he's the main character, everybody else is really the ones taking the action. The gambler's taking the action. The other pilot's the guy kind of on the run. The gal is taking a lot of the action here. And Jesse Bravo's kind of just there. Even though he's the main character with the title name, he's not really doing too much. Eventually, some gamblers catch up with them, and people get shot. The guy who's in debt ends up, killing himself in the airplane. The police show up. But a lot of that, and we're at the end of the first story now. And he does end up, kind of getting the girl at the end, and takes a little bit of action towards the end. But a lot of this could have happened without Jesse Bravo's involvement, and it kind of would have turned out almost the same way. And that's my criticism of the story here. So when you have a main character, especially when you've got something called Bravo for Adventure, you expect him to be a little bit more adventurous and do a little bit more, I guess. And you don't get that out of this book. So the art's beautiful. The airplanes scenes are awesome. It's got a very real feel. This is set in the 1930s, by the way, and you get that very great feel that this is definitely real in the 1930s. But that's it. And then the story ends. And you get one short story, I guess he did for a magazine, where Jesse Bravo gets hit in the head by an airline prop and then has all these weird dreams for several pages that are actually, the art's a lot less fleshed out than in the actual main story itself. So you get some weird stuff and some interesting little psychedelic panels and things like that. But there's just not as much to it as the last one. Some bizarre stuff happens. Some interesting cartooning right here, which I really like. Cool panels trying to show off. And then he wakes up, and that's about it. So kind of a tragic end for the hero. And there's some talk about, like, maybe we want to do more. And I guess Alex Toth really wanted to do more with this character and really was hyped about it for a long, long time. Here's some of the original pencils that didn't make it, that actually got changed. And then there were some color versions that were supposed to be made of it. Very cool. Look at the coloring here. And actually, Alex Toth did some of this coloring himself, which was kind of neat. And lots of ideas about this here. So lots of history involved with this, which is pretty cool. It just has that one little weird quirk about the story where the main character really isn't doing much compared to everybody else in the adventure. And since it's called Bravo for Adventure, you kind of expect something else as a reader on that level. Now, the art is so good, it's just like, wow, this is what comic books should be. It's a 10 out of 10 on that level. You cannot beat this. There's nothing out there that is remotely like Alex Toth, and I think I'm very glad I got this very big artist edition. It's a quick read because it's only 70 pages. And so it leaves you wanting more. It makes you think, wow, what could have been if we had a bunch of serial adventures of this, like he kind of brainstormed and had the idea of over the course of his lifetime. That would have been pretty neat. And this is what we have. And I think on the artistry level, and on I'd say the interior storytelling level, on like the panel to panel, the pacing, and just the moods that are communicated by the different figures and things like that, the storytelling works on that level. And of course, the mystery is resolved. Everything makes sense in the storyline, and it does have a good enough pace to where you don't really want to put it down throughout the course because you want to find out what's going on. So it worked on all of that level. It's just, I feel like the main character in a single adventure like this should have done a little bit more, so I could have connected to Jesse Bravo a little bit more than some of the side characters that were going on. But that's my nitpick. I'm nitpicking greatness, so what can you do? Definitely recommend everybody pick this up. It is a 9 out of 10. This is comic history right here, even as it is, and even with what I'm focusing on. And what a great edition of it. So very cool job by the Library of American Comics. And we'll be back soon. Hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you think of Alex Toth, and if you've read this yourself, what you think of this. Love to hear from you guys. See ya.